Welcome to Top Stories Hub. Today we've got a new story, a mystery you'll want to unravel. I trudged into the house, drained from a grueling day, craving nothing but a peaceful night. Instead, an unsettling hush welcomed me, one that felt alien in my own home. My mom, my wife, my boys, and my buddy Jake were all perched on the sofa, their expressions blank, their gazes dodging mine. The atmosphere was wrong, heavy with something unspoken. This wasn't the usual strain that sometimes hung in the air when I got home late. It wasn't the faint whiff of charred dinner from Emily's kitchen mishaps. It wasn't even the rigid way my son sat, as if steeling himself for a blow. No, this was something darker, something intentional. I dropped my briefcase, shrugging off the tension in my shoulders as I tried to gauge the mood. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my tone even despite the unease creeping in. Silence lingered too long, sending a chill through me. Then my oldest, Ethan, cleared his throat and dropped a bombshell I'd never erase from my mind. "Dad, take a seat. You've got to face it, things have changed. You're not the one calling the shots in this family anymore. Uncle Jake's been more of a dad to us." His words cut like a blade. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "Come again." My voice stayed steady, eerily so, despite the fury igniting in my chest. Ethan avoided my eyes, his fingers tapping his knee, a nervous habit he'd had since he was a kid. But my focus shifted to the one person who should have stepped in, Emily. She sat there, hands clasped tightly, her face a mask, not surprised, not remorseful, just detached. She knew. They all did. My mother shifted, letting out a breath as if this moment was long overdue. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't angry. She was in on it. Jake, my so-called best friend, didn't even twitch. He lounged there, at ease, as if this was just another day at the office. He looked too comfortable, like he'd already claimed my place. The truth hit me like a sledgehammer. This wasn't sudden. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. This had been orchestrated. I looked at my sons, pleading silently for one of them to waver, to show a hint of guilt. But Ethan stood firm, and Noah, my younger boy, though quieter, held my gaze without flinching. He didn't back down. I took a slow breath, swallowing the searing anger threatening to erupt. I'd spent years honing control, facing down cutthroat opponents in court, dismantling their cases with surgical precision. But this? This wasn't a courtroom showdown. This was a betrayal, and I'd walked right into their trap. "Jake's more of a father to you," I echoed, my voice unnervingly calm. Ethan nodded, his jaw clenching. "Yeah." I didn't glance at Jake yet, I couldn't. Instead, I fixed my eyes on Emily. "Emily," I said, my tone edged with something sharp, something deadly, "got anything to say?" For the first time, her cool facade cracked. She sucked in a breath, smoothing her skirt as if that could erase the sting of her disloyalty. She wasn't ready for this confrontation. That was my first win. "I think we should all," I cut her off with a raised hand. No. No vague, practiced lines. No sidestepping. "Tell me, Emily, when did I stop being your husband and their father? Was it a slow fade, or did you decide it one night while sleeping in our bed?" Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. That was my second win. She hadn't expected pushback. She thought I'd either lose it or crumble. Instead, I was measured, icy, in control. Then, at last, I turned to Jake. Jake, the guy I'd trusted with my life, who'd been there when my kids were born, who'd raised a glass at my wedding, who'd shared my triumphs and sorrows, the man I'd called family. Now he sat in my home, in my space, waiting for me to admit he'd outplayed me. He was waiting for me to crack. I gave him a small, deliberate smile, the kind that made rival attorneys sweat in court. Jake's smugness wavered, just for a second. That was my third win. I let out a breath, stepping back, adjusting my cuffs as if this was just a minor blip in my evening. The room felt stifling, the walls pressing in, but I wouldn't let them see my pain. I refused to give them the satisfaction of knowing they'd hurt me. Instead, I turned toward the door. "Got something to add?" Jake finally spoke, his voice slick, composed, arrogant. I paused, tilting my head slightly, letting the silence stretch, letting the tension tighten like a noose. Then I let out a low, knowing chuckle. That was my fourth win. Without a word, I walked out. This wasn't the night I lost. No, this was the night I started planning, and by the time they realized what was coming, it'd be too late. I shut the door behind me and lingered in the hallway for a moment, listening. Silence. Then a shuffle, movement, soft sighs of relief. They thought I was done. That was my proof. They'd expected me to explode, to demand answers, to beg. But they didn't know me at all. I strode down the hall, past family photos that now felt like cruel jokes, frozen moments of fake joy, loyalty that never existed. My wife, my mom, my sons, and Jake. The betrayal didn't shock me as much as their casual acceptance of it. They'd made their choice without me. They'd moved on. I slipped into my study, closing the door with the same eerie calm I'd held in the living room. I sank into my chair, leaning back, hands clasped in front of me. Then I exhaled. The rage was there, simmering, itching to be unleashed. It screamed for chaos, to storm back in, flip the coffee table, shatter the wine glasses, grab Jake by the collar and slam his smug face into the driveway. But violence burns out fast. Pain fades. Wounds heal. True revenge. That's lasting, and for that, I needed patience. The puzzle pieces clicked together. I'd overlooked the signs, not out of ignorance, but because I'd chosen to trust. My mom's influence had always been heavy, too heavy. She'd nudged me toward Emily, not overtly, but subtly, painting her as the perfect match, the ideal wife, the woman to build a life with. And she'd been right. Emily was all that, until she wasn't, until she decided being my wife no longer suited her. I leaned forward, my fingers drumming lightly on the desk. Jake, of all people, why him? I'd entertained the idea of cheating before. As a lawyer, you see it all, marriages unraveling, quiet affairs, betrayals behind closed doors. I'd told myself I'd sense it if it happened to me, that I'd feel the shift. But I hadn't, because this wasn't one betrayal. It was a gradual takeover, a calculated replacement, a silent coup. Their mistake. They thought my silence meant surrender. They figured I was too old to fight, too tied down to walk away. But the truth? I was already gone, not physically, not yet, but emotionally, mentally. I'd checked out, and when a man stops caring, when he stops believing there's anything worth saving, he becomes unstoppable. That was their first misstep. Their second? They assumed they'd stripped me bare, that I had nothing left to lose. They forgot I'm a lawyer, and power isn't about feelings, it's about leverage. And I had leverage, more than they could fathom. The plan took shape. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through contacts. First, I called my financial advisor. "Mark," I said, voice steady, "freeze all joint accounts, effective now." He paused. "You sure, sir? That cuts off Emily's access too." "I know exactly what it does." "Got it." Click. First step taken. Next, I dialed my attorney. "Greg," I said, my tone smoother now, "file for divorce, expedited. No compromises. Now, Tom." A beat, then a sigh. "Papers will be ready by morning." Second step done. Finally, I called an old contact, someone who owed me big, someone who knew how to dismantle lives. And with that, the gears started turning. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of my next moves. They thought they'd won. They thought I'd slunk off to lick my wounds. But I wasn't retreating. I was arming myself. And when they finally saw it coming, it'd be far too late. The next morning, the storm broke, not with noise or fury, but with silence. It began when Emily tried her usual online payment, maybe a bill for the house or a splurge on some overpriced boutique item she swore was essential. But instead of going through, the screen flashed red, transaction declined, she frowned, hitting refresh. Same error. She tried again, this time on her phone, flipping between accounts. Declined. Emily wasn't clueless, she knew something was up. That's when she grabbed her purse, hopped into her BMW, the one I'd gifted her for her birthday, and sped to the bank, where the truth hit her like a freight train. The joint accounts are locked, Mrs. Harper, the bank manager said, squirming in his seat behind the desk. Yes, Emily shot back, her patience already fraying. What's the problem? My account shows a security hold. I need it lifted now. The manager paused, clearly dreading the conversation. I'm sorry, but that's not an option right now. Emily's eyes narrowed to slits. And why the hell not? He drew a deep breath, wishing someone else could break the news. Your husband ordered a freeze on all shared accounts. His attorney submitted the required paperwork. Legally, we can't give you access without his approval. Emily's breath caught in her throat. That's absurd. I've had access to those accounts for years. Yes, ma'am, the manager replied, nodding courteously, but as of now, you don't. A creeping dread settled into her gaze. The reality sank in like a stone in deep water. I'd severed her completely. She never imagined I'd go this far, not after all we'd been through, all we'd built together. She expected me to shatter, but instead, I'd left them stranded. First, the credit cards failed. By the time Emily stormed out of the bank, her hands trembled as she dialed Jake. I can picture her voice, sharp with panic. Jake, he's locked everything. What do we do? But Jake was drowning in his own chaos, because while she was grappling with the bank, I'd kicked off phase 2, her credit lines. As she argued with the manager, I was quietly shutting down every card she relied on. By the time she tried to pay for a latte on her way home, her platinum card was rejected. She swiped another. Denied. Pulled out the emergency card tucked in her wallet. Declined. That's when the fear truly took root. Jake's empire unraveled. While Emily floundered, Jake was stepping into his own personal hell. His business? It thrived because of me, not because he was some mastermind, not because he had a knack for numbers, but because I'd opened doors for him. I'd connected him with clients, introduced him to investors, handed him the keys to the right markets. Now, I was yanking it all away. One by one, his key investors bailed. First, the construction company that had fed him contracts for years abruptly cancelled all future deals. Then, his biggest supplier sent a curt email, "We regret to inform you that, due to unexpected circumstances, our partnership is terminated effective immediately." Jake didn't realize it yet, but his company was on life support. By noon, 2 more investors had jumped ship. By evening, his cash flow was choking. When he checked his accounts, they were bleeding red. I hadn't just cut him out of my life, I'd severed his lifeline. The house of cards toppled. As Emily and Jake scrambled in their separate crises, my sons, Ethan and Noah, were about to face their own reckoning. They'd never truly valued the life I gave them. Everything, their Ivy League educations, the sleek cars parked in their driveways, existed because of me. Yet they'd turned their backs on me, called Jake their father, erased me from their lives before I even left the room. So I granted their wish, I let them see what life was like without me. First to go, their tuition. Ethan, deep into his master's program, got a notification, * your tuition payment is overdue. Failure to pay within 7 days will result in enrollment suspension. * Noah, used to his cushy, carefree lifestyle, found his monthly allowance vanished, no heads up, no explanation, just gone. They called their banks, only to hear the same cold truth as their mother: your father has terminated your access to these funds. You're no longer authorized. Panic set in. By nightfall, the calls started pouring in. Emily called. Ethan called. Noah called. Even my mother, Claire, who'd raised me and helped orchestrate this betrayal, called. I didn't pick up a single one, not yet, not until they'd felt the full weight of their choices, not until they grasped that the man they'd dismissed, the man they'd replaced, was the only reason they had anything at all. By evening, I imagined them gathered in that same living room, the one where they'd made their choice. But now, the vibe was different. They weren't calling the shots anymore. They were floundering, and I was watching them sink. Jake sat in his office, sipping his usual overpriced espresso, oblivious to the fact that his world was imploding. For years, he'd built his business on connections, not grit, not brains, but relationships. And those relationships? They were mine. From day one, he'd leaned on my influence, my clients, my investors, my reputation. I'd propped him up because, back then, he was my best friend, my brother in all but name. But now? Now I was dismantling him. The first hit: disappearing investors. Trouble arrived via email, subject: contract cancellation. Jake scanned it, his brow furrowing. Due to unforeseen financial concerns, we regret to inform you that our contract with your firm is terminated effective immediately. His jaw tightened. The sender, his biggest investor, the one keeping his cash flow steady. He set the phone down, running a hand through his hair, trying to shrug off the unease slithering through him. Just a glitch, he told himself, something a quick call could fix. He dialed, forcing a grin when his contact picked up. Hey, Mike, just saw the email. What's the deal? A long pause. Then Mike sighed. Jake, I'm sorry, man, but we can't work with you anymore. Jake's grip tightened on the phone. What? Why? What's changed since last week? A beat of silence, then the gut punch: Tom. The world went cold. What about him? Jake managed. Mike hesitated, then lowered his voice. Look, Jake, I don't know what went down between you two, but let's just say he's making it clear that doing business with you is a bad bet. Jake shot out of his chair, knocking his coffee across the desk. This is insane, he barked. Tom wouldn't do that. Wouldn't he? Mike interrupted. He's a heavy hitter, Jake, and well respected. If I had to choose between him and you, another pause. I'd pick him every time. Click. The line went dead. The dominoes fell fast. Jake stood there, phone still pressed to his ear long after the call ended. This couldn't be happening. Tom was calculated, sure, ruthless in court, but he wouldn't torch someone's life. Would he? His phone buzzed again. Another investor. Same story. Then another, and another. By midday, 4 major clients had bailed. By 3 p.m., suppliers were dodging his calls. By 5 p.m., his business was on its knees. Then came the killing blow, the license revocation. Jake was still reeling when his assistant walked in, her face ashen. Sir, she said, voice shaky, we just got a notice from the licensing board. His stomach twisted. What? She swallowed, setting a document on his desk with trembling hands. He grabbed it, eyes scanning the first line: effective immediately, the following business licenses are revoked due to legal concerns regarding conflicts of interest and ethical violations, the rest blurred. His company was finished, legally, officially, permanently. Jake's realization hit hard, he slumped back in his chair, breath shallow. This wasn't random. This was surgical, a calculated takedown. And only one person could pull it off: Tom. His old friend, his brother, the man he betrayed. Now Jake was learning the hard way that Tom didn't just settle scores, he made sure you stayed down. The desperate call, by the time Jake snapped out of it, his phone showed 69 missed calls. Half from Emily, the rest from investors, employees, clients, all freaking out, all scrambling to understand the chaos. And Tom? Not a single response. Jake clenched his jaw and dialed again. Voicemail, as always. The same clipped message, * you've reached Tom Harper. I'm unavailable. Leave a message, * beep. Jake exhaled hard, gripping the phone. Tom, he began, voice tight, I don't know what you're doing, but you've got to stop. Silence. He swallowed. We need to talk. Just call me back, all right? This is too far. Click. Call ended. Message ignored. Jake stared at his phone, pulse racing. For the first time, he was scared. Tom wasn't just angry. He wasn't just striking back. He was wiping Jake off the map, and Jake was powerless to stop it. The house was eerily still that night. Emily sat in the living room, clutching her phone so hard her knuckles whitened. The lamp beside her cast a faint, flickering glow, barely lighting the worry carved into her face. She'd called Tom over and over. Nothing. Not a peep. Her hands shook as she tried Jake next, but she already knew what was coming. The number you are trying to reach is unavailable. Emily let out a shaky breath, glancing across the room. Ethan sat rigid on the couch, staring at his laptop, but his fingers weren't moving. His screen was stuck on a university notice. Noah, meanwhile, was pacing, restless as ever when things went south, and right now, everything was going south. Emily knew it. Her sons knew it. But no one wanted to voice it, because saying it meant owning it, owning that Tom had done the unthinkable, that he'd torn their entire world apart. The tuition funds vanished. Ethan hadn't spoken in hours, not since he logged into his student portal to check his next tuition payment, not since he saw the glaring red alert, * urgent, tuition payment overdue. Immediate payment required to remain enrolled, * his gut sank. That couldn't be right. His tuition was always covered, no question. But when he checked his financials, his heart raced. The money was gone. His father had pulled it all. Ethan had always assumed his education was a given, just like his father's presence. Now, he wasn't sure about either. He replayed last night's words, Uncle Jake is more like a father to us now, his stomach churned. He'd chosen wrong. Noah's lifestyle imploded. Noah broke the silence first. Mom, he snapped, raking a hand through his hair, I just tried to fill up my car, and my card got declined. Again. Emily barely flinched, her eyes glued to her phone. He scoffed, pacing faster. I called the bank. Guess what? My account's empty. He spun to face her and Ethan. Is anyone gonna say it? Dad's cutting us off. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he stayed quiet. Emily, though, finally exhaled slowly. Yes, she said softly, he is. Noah let out a sharp, bitter laugh, throwing up his hands. Well, that's just perfect. What did you expect? You let Jake walk all over him, and now we're all screwed. Emily's head snapped toward him. I didn't let Jake do anything, she hissed. Your father, she cut herself off, breathing hard. Your father's just lashing out, that's all. Noah laughed again, colder this time. Lashing out? Mom, open your eyes. Dad's torching everything. And for the first time, Emily believed it. The call that changed it all, when the house phone rang, the room froze. Emily grabbed it so fast she nearly fumbled it. Tom, she gasped. But it wasn't Tom. It was her mother, Diane, and her voice was like ice. Emily, Diane said, are you sitting down? Emily's brow furrowed, her grip tightening. What's wrong? Diane let out a heavy breath, bracing herself. Then she dropped the bomb that made Emily's world spin. Your father's retirement savings are gone. Emily's mouth went dry. What? She whispered. Diane pressed on, her tone unwavering. I checked this morning. The accounts, the ones Tom managed for us, they're empty. Every penny. We're broke, Emily. Emily couldn't breathe. But that's impossible. Tom wouldn't. Wouldn't he? Diane's voice sharpened. Because I'm pretty sure he would. And I'm pretty sure he just did. Emily's mind spiraled. Her parents had leaned on Tom for years, his investments, his financial savvy, his ability to keep things steady. And now it was all gone. Her own parents were paying the price for her betrayal. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Emily felt something new, regret. The truth crashed over her. Emily could hardly recall setting the phone down. Everything blurred together. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind. We're broke. Ethan's accusation seared her heart. What did you think would happen? And above all, Tom's silence roared louder than any scream. She'd assumed, stupidly, blindly, that he'd lash out, shout, point fingers. But he hadn't. Instead, he'd simply stepped away, and in doing so, he'd dismantled their entire world. He'd let them choose, then showed them the price of that choice. Sitting there, clutching her phone like it could save her, Emily grasped the harsh reality. Tom wasn't coming back. He wouldn't swoop in to rescue them. He wouldn't fix this mess. For the first time, she realized she'd never truly known him. She'd known the Tom who bent over backward for them, the Tom who loved her without question, the Tom who never pushed back. But the real Tom? He was the one watching them fall apart, and he wasn't lifting a finger to stop it. Their world crumbled entirely. That night, as Emily lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she replayed how fast it all unraveled. Just one night, that's all it took. Yesterday, she thought she had it all. Today, she had nothing. Worst of all, she had no one to blame but herself. Emily had never felt fear like this, not as a broke college kid scrambling to pass exams, not as a new mom overwhelmed by twins wailing at 3 a.m., not even when she realized her love for Tom had faded. This fear was different, all-consuming, because it wasn't just about her. She'd lost everything, and she had no clue how to claw it back. The house was a mess. Her boys were freaking out. Her mother kept calling. Jake had gone radio silent. And the one person who could fix it, the man she betrayed, wasn't answering. The calls kept coming. She tried again, one last desperate attempt. The phone rang endlessly before hitting voicemail. * You've reached Tom Harper. I'm unavailable. Leave a message. * Emily's jaw tightened, her throat burning. He was shutting her out. She texted. No reply. She emailed. Silence. Panic took over. She grabbed the house phone, thinking surely, he wouldn't ignore a call from home. But he did. That's when it sank in, this wasn't a game. Tom was gone. The boys pleaded. Ethan and Noah had never stressed about money before. It was always there, until now, until their father, the man they dismissed, replaced, and mocked, stripped it all away. They weren't coping well. I don't get it, Ethan muttered, pacing the room. Can he really just cut us off like this? Noah snorted. Yeah, dude, he clearly did. Ethan dragged a hand through his hair. Okay, but Mom, he wouldn't let us end up on the street, right? He wouldn't just ditch us. Emily swallowed hard. She wanted to say no, to promise Tom would come around. But the words stuck in her throat, she wasn't sure anymore. Noah snatched his phone. Forget this. I'm calling him myself. He dialed. Voicemail. Ethan tried next. Voicemail. Then they resorted to begging, Dad, come on, we were just mad. We didn't mean it. You're still our dad, all right? Call us back. Please, Dad, we're sorry. We need you. But Tom didn't respond, and his silence cut deeper than any words could. Emily's final try. Emily knew she had to confront him, make him hear her, make him forgive her. So she climbed into her car, the one Tom had gifted her, and drove to his office. But when she got there, the receptionist blocked her path. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harper," the woman said, her tone carefully neutral. "Mr. Harper has instructed us not to let you in." Emily's stomach plummeted. Not see her? Her own husband. She forced a tight smile. "You must have misunderstood. We're married. He'll see me." The receptionist hesitated, then, with a flicker of pity, handed Emily an envelope. Emily's hands shook as she took it, her heart pounding. She stepped aside, tore it open, and pulled out a single document, a divorce petition, filed, signed, final. A note was attached, 5 devastating words: "There's nothing left to save." Emily couldn't breathe. She'd lost. And Tom? He'd already moved on. Her mother's warning, that night, when Emily dragged herself home, her mother, Diane, was waiting. She sat in the living room, hands folded, watching Emily stumble in, dazed. Diane already knew, Emily could see it in her eyes, the disappointment, the resignation, the quiet judgment. "I warned you to tread carefully," Diane said, her voice steady but cutting. Emily let out a bitter laugh. "Carefully? Careful of what, Mom?" Diane sighed, shaking her head. "Of underestimating a man like Tom." Emily's fists clenched. "You told me." "I told you," Diane cut in sharply. "I told you men adapt. I told you your father adapted. That didn't mean Tom would." She fixed Emily with a cold stare. "I told you how to keep him, and instead, you let your ego destroy everything." Emily's jaw tightened. "I just wanted to be free." Diane nodded slowly. "And now you are. How's that working out for you?" Emily stayed silent, because the truth was, it felt like absolute hell. Jake shattered. By midnight, Jake finally broke. His business was gone. His finances were in tatters. His best friend had obliterated him. And for the first time, he understood why. He'd earned it. Tom had trusted him, built him up, and Jake had stabbed him in the back. But he wasn't ready to surrender. So he did the only thing left. He drove to Tom's house, stormed up the steps, and pounded on the door. "Tom," he yelled. "Come out and face me." Silence. Then, slowly, the door creaked open, and there stood Tom, calm, unruffled, icy. Jake's anger wavered, because the man before him wasn't raging or vengeful. He'd already won, and Jake was already a ghost. Tom tilted his head slightly. "What do you want, Jake?" he asked, voice smooth. Jake swallowed hard. "You destroyed me." Tom nodded. "I did." Jake's fists balled up. "You had no right." Tom stepped closer, his presence chilling. "I had every right," he said softly. And for the first time, Jake felt real fear, because Tom wasn't just settling a score, he was ensuring Jake could never recover. The final plea, Emily called one last time that night, one last desperate attempt. "Tom, please, we messed up." "I messed up. Just talk to me. Give me one more chance." But there was no answer, and this time, there never would be. Tom was gone, and he wasn't looking back. I watched the phone buzz on the desk. Emily, again. I didn't pick up, not because I missed it, not because I was tied up, but because she no longer deserved my response. I let it ring until it stopped. A minute later, another call, Ethan, then Noah, then Diane, one after another. I let them all go to voicemail. For the first time in 19 years, I owed them nothing, not my time, not my patience, not my presence, and definitely not my forgiveness. The showdown they didn't expect, I knew it wasn't over. I knew Emily well enough to predict her next move. So when she barged into my office the next morning, storming past the receptionist before anyone could stop her, I wasn't shocked. She slammed the door, her eyes red, hands trembling. She was desperate now. Good. She'd earned that. Tom, she started, voice raw, please. I stayed silent, leaning back in my chair, letting the quiet do the heavy lifting. She took a shaky breath. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. I tilted my head slightly. Which part, Emily? The lies? The betrayal? The plotting? The fact that you weren't going to stop until I caught you? She flinched. That was the truth, wasn't it? She wasn't sorry for what she did, just sorry she got caught. She stepped closer. Tom, please, she whispered. I love you. I let out a slow breath, stood, walked around the desk, and stopped in front of her. Then I said the words that would end it all, no, you don't, Emily. Her breath hitched. Her lips quivered. I didn't stop. You never did. Not in the way that counts. Her eyes glistened with tears. That's not true. I cut her off. You loved what I gave you. The security, the lifestyle, the image. But me? The man? The husband? You haven't loved me in years, Emily. Maybe you never did. She shook her head, stepping closer. That's not true. I messed up. I gave her that small, cold smile, the one that stopped her dead. You didn't mess up, Emily, I said quietly. You made a choice. And now she had to live with it. The sons who picked the wrong side, when I got home that evening, Ethan and Noah were waiting. They stood in the living room, arms crossed, faces grim. I closed the door and leaned against it, waiting. Silence stretched. Then, finally, Ethan spoke. Dad, please, Ethan said, his voice strained. Isn't this going a bit overboard? I stayed silent. He let out a heavy sigh. Look, we get it. Mom messed up big time, but do you really think destroying our lives is fair? I arched an eyebrow. Destroying your lives? I echoed, my tone flat. Noah snorted, shaking his head. Yeah, Dad, we've got nothing left. No money, no stability, no future. I let those words hang in the air for a moment. Then I stepped away from the door, closing the distance between us, and said the words that finally sank in, welcome to the life you thought didn't need me. Ethan's jaw clamped shut. Noah swallowed hard. I tilted my head. You thought I was just background noise, just a paycheck, someone you could swap out. And when you found a substitute, I gave a low, bitter chuckle. You tossed me aside like I was worthless. They didn't respond, they couldn't, because they knew I was right. Now they wanted me to clean up their mess, to restore their money, their security, their lives. But they'd made their choice, and I'd made mine. Jake's final plea, I should have seen it coming, that last, desperate Hail Mary. That night, as I packed the last of my belongings, Jake showed up, hammering on my door. I opened it, unfazed. He stood there, a shell of the man he'd been, broken by his own losses. Tom, he began, voice hoarse, we've got to talk. I didn't budge, didn't invite him in, just stared. He exhaled sharply, scrubbing a hand over his face. I screwed up, he muttered. I know I did. But you obliterated me, man. My business, my reputation, my whole life, it's gone. I let him ramble, let him pour out his excuses, his regrets, his weak attempts to dodge blame. Then, at last, I spoke. Good. Jake blinked, stunned. What? I stepped closer, my voice low and deliberate. Good. I want you to feel what it's like to lose it all, to be stabbed in the back by someone you trusted, to watch the people you cared about turn their backs on you. He swallowed, his face draining of color. Tom, I didn't mean. I cut him off. You did. And that's why I don't care. His expression crumpled. For the first time, he got it, there was no fixing this, no forgiveness, no second chances. I let the silence stretch, heavy and final. Then I closed the door and locked it. Jake was already nothing to me. The farewell that wasn't, the next morning, I packed my bags. I had everything I needed, my wealth, my influence, my freedom. I walked through the house one last time, my fingers brushing over the furniture, the walls, the remnants of a life that never truly belonged to me. Then, without a backward glance, I stepped out, leaving them behind forever. And the best part? I didn't feel a pang of sadness or regret. I felt liberated, finally, fully free. I strolled into the hotel lobby, lighter than I'd felt in years. The receptionist greeted me with a warm smile. "Welcome, Mr. Harper. Your suite is ready." "Thank you," I said, sliding over my card, the one Emily couldn't touch. As she processed my check-in, I glanced at my phone, 67 missed calls. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. They were still pleading, still scrambling to reach me, still trying to salvage what was long gone. But it was too late. For the first time in 19 years, I wasn't theirs to control. I was done, and they were exactly where they belonged. The chaos unfolds. By the next morning, their desperation hit its peak. I ignored their calls all night, but the messages kept flooding in. "Emily, Tom, I'm begging you, just talk to me. Ethan, Dad, let's just sit down and sort this out. Noah, we know we messed up, but we're still your family. Diane, Emily's mother, Tom, enough. You've made your point." That one almost made me chuckle. Made my point. I was just getting started. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my coffee, watching their world implode from afar. Emily faces reality. Emily must have finally grasped how bad things were when she returned to the bank. This time, it wasn't just about her frozen accounts, she was fighting to save herself. She applied for a loan, a frantic, last-ditch effort to maintain the facade that everything was fine. But she should have known better. When the loan officer reviewed her file, all he saw was a woman with no financial footing, no job, no income, nothing to her name. She'd coasted too long on my money, my reputation, my power. Now she had none of it. When the bank rejected her loan, she walked out, her face blank with shock, because for the first time, she was truly empty-handed. Ethan and Noah learned the hard way. Ethan tried to hold on to his usual swagger, calling his university to demand a tuition extension. He argued, he bargained, he even tried dropping my name. But my name wasn't his to use anymore. The financial aid office didn't care about his excuses. They gave him 7 days, pay up or get out. Noah, meanwhile, got his own reality check when he took his car for a tune-up, only to learn the payments hadn't cleared. That's when it hit him, he didn't own the car. I did. And now the repo company was coming to take it back. I pictured his face, the moment he realized he wasn't as free as he thought. He'd spent years seeing me as just a cash machine. Now he knew what life was like without it. Jake's downfall, Jake was sinking fast. He'd built his empire on my connections, my goodwill, my doors. He'd stolen my wife, my family, my place, and now he had nothing. The second I cut him loose, his investors fled, his business was already dead. But the real blow? The lawsuits. All those clients he'd cheated, overcharged, or misled, the ones who trusted him because of me, were coming for him. Without my shield, he was defenseless. I imagined him at his desk, staring at a stack of legal notices, realizing the man he thought he'd replaced had utterly crushed him. Good. Let him suffer. The moment they shattered, by day 3, the calls tapered off. The messages shifted from anger to desperation. They weren't demanding fairness anymore, they were pleading. That's when I knew I'd won. I'd broken them. Sitting in my hotel suite, scrolling through their messages, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. For the first time since I married Emily, since I'd been molded into the perfect husband and provider, I wasn't anyone's fallback. I wasn't their safety net or their ATM. I was just me, and I liked it. The final call, it was Friday evening when the last call came. I hadn't planned to answer, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up, pressing the phone to my ear. Silence. Then Emily's voice, small and broken. "Tom." I didn't respond. She let out a trembling breath. I don't even know where to start. I took a sip of my drink. "Then don't." A pause. "I just need to understand. How did we get here?" I nearly laughed, she knew exactly how. But I answered anyway. "We got here the second you decided I was expendable." A quiet sob escaped her. "Can't we fix this?" she whispered. I shook my head, though she couldn't see. "No, Emily," I said evenly. "We can't." Another silence. Then her final plea. "Tom, I still love you." I smiled, a slow, certain, victorious smile. Then I gave her my answer. "That's nice," I said, "but I don't love you." And with that, I hung up. The last laugh, I leaned back in my chair, stretching. Outside my window, the city light sparkled, brimming with endless possibilities. I was free. And them? They were drowning. But that wasn't my burden anymore. I'd made my choice. I'd walked away, and for the first time in 19 years, I was truly, completely, unapologetically happy. That's all for today's tale on Top Stories Hub. Hit subscribe, leave a comment, and tell me what you'd like to see next.